in order to start. The ultimate goal is that you tap into your free will every single day, and you're making a choice. There's a Yid that lives in Texas, and he's not a religious Jew. And he's got a song about he wrote a song for friends of his that got married, and he asked, one of the lines is there, do you take her to be your wife forever, or will you marry her forever? And he says, no, but I'll marry her every day. It's a beautiful, beautiful line. That's what it is. When you put on your tefillin every morning, you're getting married to HaKadosh Baruch Hu every single morning, right? Of course, I'm not going to stop doing it in order, let me really reevaluate if I really want to do this or not. I won't put on my tefillin. I'll put on my tefillin every day. But the main inyan is really to be utilizing your free choice, right? So, but back into the round, that was all within parentheses. You forgive me if I took us off track here. So the main thing is that it has to come from us. Therefore, it has to be. It's such a dangerous thing. But Rabbi Shalom had to put it in a situation where free choice is in our hands. We can destroy our life. Rabbi Shalom, we can destroy our lives, and we can also fix ourselves. We can fix the world, right? It's a scary proposition. Right? And again, for parents, it's scary to relinquish, so to speak, that free will to your children. But that's really what it is. Right, the Gemara says, sorry, so just last thing, we'll go back in. The Gemara says that Derech in the path that a person wants to go, he's guided, he's given help to go in that way. Right? That's one thing it says. Another thing it says in the Gemara is that haba litaher, a person who's coming to purify himself, misayin lo, he gets help. It says, but a person who's coming to go down, potchin lo, they open the door for him. We're not going to help you go out. We're not going to help you fall down. But if you want to go, the door is open, right? It's a real thing. It's a real thing, It's the high stakes. This life when we're born, It's not the Disney. Whatever, right? That's what it is, and it has to be that way. That he could have an equal inclination to both sides, both to the good and both to the bad. And he's not forced to go in one of them. It's not written that we have to go in one of them. And that he would have the power of choice. To choose with his mind, with his intelligence, and with his desire, to go which of those two paths he chooses. And not only is it that he must choose between those, but he also has the ability to achieve either one of those. So what comes out from that is that a person can't say, well, what can I do? My Yetzer Hara is too big. I was forced to do it, right? That doesn't mean each person's bechira, we're not going to go into this right now because I want to stay focused on Racha, but it's true that at different points of our life, the place in our life where we actually have free choice is different. Sometimes it's a little bit more, it's a little bit more subtle, a little bit bigger, right? But in a general sense, a person is always in between those two places, and he has the ability, and he must use his choice and his desire to push himself. And there's not something that's pushing him more to one side or more to the other side. It's equal. It has to be equal, or else it wouldn't be free choice. Right? Therefore, a person was created with the Yetzer Tov, the good inclination, and the Yetzer Ra, and the evil inclination. You have both of those inclinations, right? Remember the story of Rivka when she was walking, when she had the twins in her stomach, and she walked past the base medrash, and she felt that Yaakov wanted to come out. She walked past the idol worshipping temple, whatever, and then Esav wanted to come out, and she didn't know what was going on with her. Right? One of the most difficult states to be in is if a person has seemingly opposing emotions or inclinations, and he doesn't know which one he is. Right? Am I Dr. Jekyll? Am I Mr. Hyde? Am I, a person feels like they don't know who they are. They don't know where to place themselves. Right? So it's a very important thing to Kadosh Baruch Hu gave you positive inclination and a negative inclination. They're both in you. You can pretend like one is not there, right? And there's all kinds of, there's all kinds of reasons why a person would not want to believe that one of them is really in him or try to ignore it, right? Just to help him be at ease with himself, that he can go in whatever path that he's going without feel, right? But there's a battle, there's a struggle, and you have both of those inside of you. And you're right smack dab. You're not the Yetzer Hara and you're not the Yetzer Tov. You're right in the middle of those two, right? And they're both pulling you. So the place of decision lies solely with you, not with either of those inclinations. Once you go with one, so then you experience whatever it is that each one is trying to get you experience. Base. Ulam ayot hadavar hazen nishlam karaui, gazal chokhma yona sheyeh adam mukam mishnei hafachim. In order for this to be a perfectly balanced place of free will, of free choice, Hashem's infinite wisdom decreed that a person should be that a person should be comprised of two opposites, right? And this is the definition of man. This is the definition of man is that he's comprised of two opposites. Dainu min neshama sichlit bezaka. In other words, with a spiritual and pure soul, v'guf atzi v'achur, in a physical and coarse body, right? The loftiest thing and the lowest thing in this world. The most. When I say low, I don't mean bad or evil, just the low, right? As far as on the scale of creation, right? That's the definition of man. When a person passes away, and they don't have their body anymore, they're just a soul, or before they're born, and they're just a soul in the world of souls. So that's not called a man yet. It's called a neshama, olam neshamot, the world of souls. He becomes a man. The definition of Adam is when he has a body and a soul together. When he's in that reality, he was in that place, right? Which is a temporary existence we have, right? As it appears here, that there are two totally oppositional forces. Shekol echad mehem yiteh b'teva litzidon. Each one of them is pulling in its nature towards its source. Dainu aguf. In other words, the body is pulling us lechomriut, to physicality, and the soul is pulling us to spirituality, right? And therefore, the man is in between this war. You're in a war zone, right? Doesn't sound so. We said the Rabbi Shalom created this world in order to give us good. In order to give us good, he put us in a war zone. It sounds difficult, right? But often it's a war zone in the sense that if it can go either way. If the soul, this is the battle. If the soul overcomes, titalehi, so the soul becomes elevated, but ta'aleh aguf iman, and the body comes up with it, right? They can't be separated. You get it? Meaning there are lahavdil spiritual practices in this world where people try to negate the body, right? They try to deny the body and totally rid themselves of any type of bodily experiences and connections, right? They minimize it, right? Where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found, that group, the Essenes, you guys know they were very much into that. They were ascetics. They were very much. They didn't. The reason why they didn't last is because they didn't believe in getting married. Shortens the lifespan of a movement, but besides that, they had on Shabbos, and Shabbos is so holy, you're not allowed to go to the bathroom. One of their rules is you're not allowed to go to the bathroom. You had to hold it in. Why? Because it was like to go to the bathroom is pasnish. It's not befitting for Shabbos Kodesh. It's disgusting.
They found writings of this?
Huh?
They found these as writings that they had?
Yeah. And the Dead Sea Scrolls, they found also books of Tanakh that they wrote, and that's the really exciting part. And then they found also different halachas from their group, But there's many different, many spiritual practices, like, monks, different groups, they're, and I understand them. It makes a lot of sense. Like, if I can deny and cut myself off from the physicalities, then I can finally be spiritual without any limitations, right? It says that tzaddikim, Gemara says that tzaddikim are, even in their death, are called alive. And Rishaim, it says that even while they're alive, they're called dead, because their life, they're not really living. But tzaddikim, even after they pass away, and what the explanation behind that is, because now they don't have the body that's limiting. They're not caught in this struggle, right? Now they could just finally be. So it makes sense that also in this world that a person would want to, just like it makes sense that a person would want to, the opposite, if a person just wanted to live a physical hedonistic life, that they would want to deny their Yetzer Tov, right? They wouldn't want to listen to the Yetzer Tov. You don't give it a place. You don't pay attention to it, right? The guilty conscience, when you just stop paying attention to it at a certain point, and then, you think it goes away. It doesn't really go away. So too, on the opposite, if a person wants to be really spiritual, so let me just be spiritual, forget about body, right? And you think it'll go away, but it doesn't go away, right? It's not supposed to go away. But HaShem built it that way on purpose. You want to say something?
Yeah, doesn't it seem like he is saying that? Like, the more spiritual you are, the more elevated you'll be. But then the more physical you are, then...
Very good. Now, but let's pay close attention to his words here. Again, I'll read that line that I just read before. That be'ofen she'im tigbar hanishama. If he stresses the soul is winning the battle, let's say, right? Titale, the soul will elevate. V'ta'ale aguf hima, and the body will be elevated with the soul. That doesn't mean the body will be left behind. The body itself, which we'll learn a little bit later on in this chapter, what he means by that. But the body becomes elevated. It doesn't remain a coarse, just physical, right? Like, for instance, if you see a very refined and spiritual person eat, it's very different from seeing a person who's not refined eat, right? The way they relate to the food, the way they relate to the whole experience, it looks different. It is different. Right? You don't feel like it's a. Sometimes you can see a person eating, and you might as well be watching a movie, from the Discovery Channel. No, it's not nice to say, but and then you see the way the tzaddik eats. It's very different.
So we'd still say that that's the soul prevailing when someone can eat.
Yeah, absolutely. The physicality becomes imbued with spirituality. That's the point. That it's not just, okay, now I'm physical, now I'm spiritual, right? And when I'm physical, I'm totally physical. When I'm spiritual, I'm totally spiritual. He blends the two, but the way that he blends them is the dafka that who's in the driver's seat? It's the soul that's driving, that's behind the wheel, or is it the body that's behind the wheel? And now let's see what happens the other way. Adam, this person who his soul overcomes, this person will be amishtalem b'shlemut amutad. That's called to achieve human perfection, right? When you elevate your soul, and the body becomes elevated with the soul. But if a person allows for the physicality to overcome, so then you think that the body becomes elevated. The body doesn't become elevated. The body becomes lowered, because it becomes right. When you see a lion eating, and you see a human being eating like a lion, one of them is not pleasant to look at, and one of them, you say, okay, what can you do? He's a lion, right? But it's not a shameful thing. It's for the lion to eat like he does, and to you see animals that are so dirt, elephants that are rolling in the mud. And you go and you give them a mussar shmooze. Don't you have any self-respect? First of all, you walk around naked. Second of all, come around here in the mud. I mean, be a mensch. But if a man would do that, right? So his body becomes lowered by that, because it's not what his body's really made for, right? So the body becomes lowered, v'tashpil nishmato ito, and the soul becomes lowered also. In other words, you get it. As long as, from the minute that we're born until the minute that we go into the next world, the body and the soul are like this. They're interlocked. They're inseparable. you can try your hardest to separate them and to deny one of them, and you're going to lose. You're going to lose. But whichever direction you pull it, the other one gets pulled with it, right?
Do we then call the soul the Yetzer Tov and whatever is material the Yetzer Hara? Because then if someone just wants to focus on spiritual, negating the body, I would assume that's Yetzer Hara, but what's the physical in that to make them want to do that?
Right. So it's a good question, and the answer is no. They're not the same thing. The body has its source, and the soul has its source. Even though there are different opinions exactly what the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov are, but in the Ramchal it seems to be clear that in a basic sense, the Yetzer Hara is it's all about how you do it, right? Eating, you have to eat. Even the monks eat, right? You have to eat. So how do you do it, right? The Yetzer Hara is trying to push you to do it in a certain way, and to not be focused on your true goal in this world, to not to be willing to sacrifice for your true goal in this world, right? To indulge, and even if a person is totally spiritual, the physical pleasures of this world are still pleasurable for him. You know, it's a different experience, but it's still pleasure, right? So, and the Yetzer Tov is trying to get him to be focused on his goal and doing Avodat Hashem.
Because then it would seem like the focus should be more on the Yetzer Hara versus the Yetzer Tov.
Shalom, you made it.
Why did Rabbi Nachman try not to go to the bathroom?
One second.
Because then I'm thinking the focus should be on what's the Yetzer Hara versus the Yetzer Tov versus the Yetzer Hara, versus what's spiritual versus what's physical.
Right. So the Yetzer Tov can push you to do physical things.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's how you do it. It's what your focus is on, right?
So it's more of just like your anatomy is a soul and a body, but that's really irrelevant to how you're making your choice. But more make your choice based off of what's Yetzer Hara Tov versus Yetzer Hara.
Right.
Right.
You can say it like that, yeah.
Okay.
Right.
He's cool. One cool. Finished.
Welcome.
There's no Yetzer Hara anymore.
What do you want to say about Rabbi Nachman? Yeah. So look, there are what I'm describing now. There's this huge subject really, and there's many different nuanced pathways within this. In the tzaddikim that they focus on the body, focus on the soul. You know, we'll see that it's not as so cut and dry as we go on, but just to understand the basics, and we'll take it step by step. So let's keep going.
I have a question. What wrong it is to focus on the body
Nothing.
for the purpose of spirituality?
Nothing.
Serving God?
That's a wonderful thing to do. Okay. So now the person that the focus is on the body, and the body becomes lowered and the soul becomes lowered with it. And that person pushes himself away from perfection, right? And it eludes him. יכולת להשפיל חומנו לפני שכלו ונשמתו ולקנות שלמותו כמו שזכרנו. So for this man that Hashem created, היכולת להשפיל חומנו, it's possible for him to lower the focus on his physicality. In other words, to subjugate it before his soul and his spirituality. Right? The reason why a lot of the spiritual practice of the world, like I said before, want to deny the body is because they come to a conclusion: it's impossible for us to overcome this body. It's impossible for us to convert the body to be a servant of the soul. That it should really be subjugate to the soul. So we have to deny it altogether because its power is too great. But says the Ramchal, no, it's within man's ability to subjugate his body to his soul. It'll be his servant, his loyal servant, and a happy servant even. And therefore he can achieve his perfection, as we've mentioned. Okay, I'm just reminded right now at this moment of a mashal that the Baal Shem Tov gives about eating on Shabbos Kodesh. So you see, if we're really supposed to be spiritual, we're not supposed to be, delighting in physical delights and all that kind of stuff. And you see, Shabbos is a day where it's all about delights, right? If you listen to at least some of the minhag of the Ashkenazim of the Zmirot of Shabbat, it's about fattened chickens and ducks and it's like, so is that the spiritual? And if you look at the Zohar Kodesh says that this is a fascinating Zohar. It says Shabbos is a day for the soul, not for the body at all. That's what it says. Yom Adin Ishmos V'lo Gufa Klal. That's what it says in the Zohar. What are you talking about? 3 meals. I don't know about you guys. In the winter, to eat that third meal, it's not always so easy, right? We just finished eating this one. We go to shul. Now it's already time for Shalosh Shidduch.
A little bit less.
Huh?
A little bit less.
A little bit less, but when you eat, there's an Indian that the food should be delicious, and the Gemara talks about the spice of Shabbos, that the food is delicious on Shabbos, right? So how does it work? So the Baal Shem Tov gives a beautiful analogy, a metaphor. He says it's like the son of a king was kidnapped from the king and was taken to a very far away place, and in that place, all the people in that place are very, very coarse. Very coarse, rough around the edges, and the son of the king, he's a very, how do you say, atzili? He's very
Refined.
very refined. He's malchusdik. He's majestic. You get the majesty of the kingdom, right? He's not used to that. He goes there and he doesn't know what to do with himself. It's hard for him to find where to put himself in such a place. So somehow or another, the king gets a letter. He manages to smuggle a letter to the son, and he says, "Don't worry, I didn't forget about you. I'm going to come. I'm going to save you. Right now I'm strategizing with the troops. I'm going to come and I'm going to save you from this place. Don't tell anybody, but I'm coming to get you." And he hid it in a language that nobody could decipher except for the son. So the son of the king gets this letter and he reads it and he's ecstatic, but he doesn't want to show. He can't show his excitement. He can't show his excitement to the people around him, because then if he shows excitement, then they're going to know something's up, be suspicious of him. So he says, "Tonight, I'm making a big party, and we're all going to get together." And he opens up the kegs of beer, and he opens up the bar for everybody, and everybody's eating, and he's also eating with him and enjoying with him. This is, and their joy is the joy of just the food and the drink, and for him, he's so happy because of his connection with his father. His father didn't forget about him, and he knows he's going to be saved, right? And so that's his joy. He's eating with them because that's it, right? He's giving that part, so to speak, right? So in this physical world, right? What's the focus? That's the idea, and that's really the essence of eating and the pleasures of Shabbos. Okay, let's go weiter. Gimel. Ve'omnam gazal tuvo yitbarach shemo. Hashem's infinite wisdom decreed sheyeh gvul lehishtadlut hazeh hamitzarech le'adam la'asig shlemut. Right? We said that a person, he perfects himself, and this is his way of emulating God. The way he perfects himself is he removes all imperfections and he increases all goodness. And Hashem gave him the body and the soul and the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara, and those are he's placed right in the middle, and he chooses and he uses that, and then he perfects himself, and then he receives that ultimate good, which is a connection with Hashem in the ultimate way. But when does that happen? So he says that Hashem decreed that there should be a set amount of time for the work, for the effort. And then once he can complete his efforts and his toil in that, then he'll receive his reward and his pleasure for infinity. And therefore Hashem created that this world is separated by 2 time periods. Echad zman avodah, ve'echad zman kibul sachar. One is the work, the time of work, and the second is the time to receive reward. Right? Just like in this world, we work, and then at the end of the day, you get your pay. Right? So that's how Kadosh Baruch Hu determined it. But Hashem, we have a klal that it says in the Gemara, a rule that for all truths in this world, if they're true in a negative sense, so the opposite is true even more. What does that mean? It says that Hashem's midah of good, Hashem's midah of giving good and wanting good is much better, is much bigger than his midah of the difficulties that he puts us through. Right? So Hashem determined. So on one hand, what's the ultimate part of that of those two time periods? What's the time period that we like the most? That we is the main thing. Olam hazeh or olam haba. Right, olam haba, the time to receive reward. That's the purpose. Hashem created this world not for work. He created this world in order to give us good. Right. So Hashem determined Shavudah yesh la zman mechukak, that the time of work will be a limited amount of time. Kamo shegazah chokhmato yitbarach shemo hayato naot lazeh, to whatever the Hashem determined would be the right amount of time to work. V'kibul hasachar en lo tachlit, and the reward, the time of receiving reward, will be endless. Ela lanetzach netzachim umitaneg ve'olech b'shlemut asher kana lo. For eternity he goes and he receives the pleasure in completion according to what he acquired, what he worked for. Right? Nothing new for you guys. Dalit. What? Everybody knows that, right? Huh? We're waiting for that time. We'll see B'ezrat Hashem. Ramchal's going to really define it all for us really well. אולם כפי התחלף זמנו, כך ראוי שיתחלף מצבו ושאר מקרב. כי כל זמן ההשתדלות, הנה צריך שיהיה בתכונה אחת. And according to each one of those different states, those different time periods, we need different surroundings, different circumstances. Right? So during each one has to have its own matzav, its own content, qualities. Right? In order that they could be in a situation where you can really do the work. He has to have the conditions. Therefore, a person, again, he says, as we mentioned before, a person has to be in a position where he's in the battle between the physical and the spiritual, and that there's nothing that's stopping him from going down the tube, so to speak, and just in the physicality. And that there should be nothing that's stopping him from the spirituality winning and taking over. To the degree that it can. You understand, there's we would call this the spiritual balance of power. Hashem always makes it that it's always balanced. That there's nothing that's forcing the spirituality to win, and there's nothing that's forcing the physicality to win. It's always a decision. Lost my spot here. Because even though it looks really that it would be better to do it like this way, meaning that if Hashem would make it that like we have free choice, but we can't really fall all the way to the bottom. Right? Does that make sense? Like a protective measure. Like that there'd be more spirituality. Right? Or that it'd be easier to be spiritual than the physical. Right? That would seem like it would be better. I'll just finish this sentence, I'll come to you. But since the whole thing is that a person has to really genuinely be in that spot of it's a real free choice, and it's really in his hands, only then can he really acquire the good. It's really him that acquired it. So Hashem had to make it in this place where it's dangerous. It's like sometimes, like to get anything good in life, really it's a risk. If you want to get married, you want to have a marriage, getting married is risky, gentlemen. You can get hurt. Having children is risky. You have a tremendous amount of responsibility, and you get hurt. Right? You want the greatness of a good marriage and the joy of raising children and the mitzvah of bringing Hashem's children to this world. So you have to be willing to take the risk. Right? It's not what they call mischak yeladim. It's not a child's game. It's the real thing, right? That's the only way that a person can achieve true greatness is if he really steps in and takes responsibility in that place, right? Yeah.
I'm still confused why he says that the battle is between the spiritual and physical and not between the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer
Right.
Tov.
No, he means it in a general sense, meaning what's the focus? Who's going to be the driving force is what it means.
Well, because we said that physical isn't necessarily bad.
For sure. If it's the servant of the spiritual, it's not bad. If it's the main focus, so it is bad.
There's a saying in English: life is what to make it.
Mm-hmm.
In spirituality, to be such a wonderful thing.
Right.
Or else, God forbid.
I give you an example that the physical relationship, physical intimacy between a husband and wife.
Holy.
It's right. It's that's the holiest expression of closeness between a husband and wife. But that very act, if not used in holy ways, can be the most degrading and animalistic and damaging act that there is that human beings can do. Right? That makes sense. It's hard to it's on one hand, like, it'd be easy to just say, all right, physicality is bad, just make things black and white and clear for us, but that's just not how it is. It's really what the context of the use is.
Right, I understand that, but it seems like when he says like the more physical, so you can either have like a small party or a huge party, but if you have the right intention behind either one, are we saying that? Because he's saying that
Right.
the more physical you get, so
Right.
what does that mean?
Right.
Like the bigger the party? Or
Since you already explained it earlier, now when he says that, he just means it in a general sense. Like you're saying, but what's the focus, right? Meaning he's already told us that you can't have one and not the other. They're interlocked, and whichever direction you go, the other one's going to get taken with it, right? So you can either get taken down a bad path where the soul becomes degraded together with the body, or the body becomes elevated together with the soul.
I understand it different. There are people, it's a level. People, the level is a little bit low, so they need a big party. We're going to serve HaShem with a big party.
No.
That's at the higher level.
Right.
You need to be bombastic. Even little you can make it great.
Right.
Big.
I hear. I don't disagree with you. We'll see. I don't know if we're going to get to it today, but no, I don't think we're going to get to it today. But just a little teaser is that everything that he's talking about right now is not exactly accurate for our time period in history. All that he's just laying out how Hashem created the world, and in order to understand how we got to where we are now. All this is talking about before Adam Harishon's sin, right? And where things change in a certain sense, and especially now, that we're really at the end of the whole, because we just learned that Hashem gave a certain amount of time for the work, and then infinity for the reward. The certain amount of time everybody knows is 6,000 years, right? The Gemara teaches us, Chazal taught us that we have 6,000 years, and right now where are we now? 5,785.
785.
We're rounding third base, gentlemen. That's baseball for the non-Americans. Apologize. I don't know soccer, so I'm in football, so I don't know. The game's almost up. It's almost finished, right? So things are different. Things are a little bit different now, right? But the Ramchal is explaining generally how it was created and how it's supposed to work. Okay, let's see where we were. ובזמן קיבוץ שכר, הנה ראוי לו שיהיה במצב הופקי לזה, כי הנה כל מה שיהיה החומר שולט באותו זמן, הנה לא היה אלא מחשיך ומעכב את הנשמה, שלא תתאבק בבורא יתברך שמו. על כן הנה ראוי הוא שלא תשלוט אז אלא הנשמה, והחומר יהיה נמשך אחריה, לגמרי באופן שלא יעכב על ידה כלל. And then it should be that in the time of reward, meaning it said that in this time where it's a time of work, it would be nice if a Kadosh Baruch would make it that the soul was just a little bit more strong. The positive inclination was a little bit more strong than the negative inclination, right? Make our jobs easier. but it can't be in order. Like it's got to be said in the future, in the time of reward. So that it should be that the body's influence is so much more minor, in order that it doesn't distract us from the spiritual pleasures that we're going to be experiencing. Them, right? Because ultimately, the ultimate is spirituality. The physical is something that is used for the spirituality, right? But the ultimate reality, just like before we came in this world, was the world of souls. It's purely spiritual, right? So in the future, that's what he says, that it should be in order that it shouldn't block the soul, and that the soul shouldn't be fooled by to get confused by physicality. And therefore, there are two worlds that were created: Olam hazeh ve'olam haba. This world and the next world. Olam hazeh makom v'achukim v'ativim shelo. This world, Olam hazeh, has its physical laws, and it's got the rules how things function here. And it was designed in a way that was perfect for that it should. This is the playing field for man to be able to exercise his free will. That's how this world was designed, with one goal in mind. But should be the perfect place, the perfect circumstances that man can exercise his free will. The Olam haba, in the world to come, makom v'achukim shelo, with its rules and its circumstances, hem ma sheraui lo bazman kibus achar, and that's what's appropriate there. That a person's not in a milchama over there. What do you guys say? The Olam haba has a body, or he doesn't have a body?
Isn't it like two faces that one face has before? Or is that Olam haba the physical face that there is supposedly to be?
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Like the ability to recognize someone, you mean, or to something, to be familiar with.
No, like the 1,000 years. Isn't there supposed to be a period of 1,000 years when man is physically in physical world, but also in Olam haba? But
Right. All right. So there we have different sources about this thing, right? We don't know exactly. So in this class, I'm just teaching according to the Ramchal, even though there are different opinions, the Arizal and the Rambam, right? But exactly what it's going to be. The Rambam even says don't even try to understand exactly how it's going to be. We only just like in the first chapter about HaShem, we have 6 things passed down to us about God. So also in Olam haba we have a few things passed down to us, right? But nobody really knows, and even the prophets. It says in the Gemara that the prophets, there's not a single prophet that saw the world to come. That all the prophets, when they prophesied about the great things that are going to be in the future, kulam lo itnabu ela be'yemos Mashiach. They only prophesied what they saw. The visions that they were shown were about the days of Mashiach, but not what's called Olam haba. And that it says, "Ayin lo ra'ata Elokim zulatecha." No eye has ever seen it except for HaShem. So therefore, we don't have any testimony or any. We only have of traditions of what were passed down to us, right? But according to the Ramchal, here a person will have a body in the world to come. Right? It's not going to be the same body that you see here. It's not going to function in the same way. It's going to be a totally different thing, right? And there's a Gemara that says that there's something called a chaluk, and the Zohar says a chaluka de Rabbanan, the jacket, the rabbinical like coat, like a garment, right? And this is one of the sources. This is probably the source why many of the traditional Jews, the Rabbanim, would wear a special type of garment, a long garment that covers up the whole body, right? And what do you call it? Not expresses it. It symbolizes what the body is an encasement for the soul. It's the vehicle that carries the soul in this world, and in the future, there's also going to be a body which encases the soul, but it's going to be very different. It's going to be a very, very, very beautiful and totally refined thing, right? So, but there's going to be such a thing called a body over there. It's already late, huh? Let's see. I think we can get in. Hey. What we also have to know, שהיא המין האנושי, אין עניינו, שהנה המין האנושי, אין עניינו הראשון, כמו שאנחנו רואים ומבחינים אותו עתה. כי אולם שינוי גדול היה בו. And we also have to know, this is what I was saying before, that we'll learn more about it next week, but it says we have to know that the mankind, right, its original state is not like we experience it today. Because there was a great change that took place. This was the sin of Adam Harishon. That the world and mankind were changed. There was a fundamental change that took place through that sin. It's true that there's many details of what these changes were. With the help of God, we'll speak more about those later on in the book. So it comes out when we talk about mankind and explaining man's state and all the environment of man, it's double. One is talking about a man's state and his environment before the sin of Adam Rishon, and another one is talking about after the sin of after the sin of Adam Rishon. Two states, right? It wasn't just like this symbolic chet. Like today, when a person does a chet, so we don't feel anything. Maybe we feel a little bit guilty, right? You don't feel any change in yourself in this, unless you're really a really sensitized spiritual person, right? You don't necessarily feel a spiritual change in yourself, right? Maybe a big sin, maybe you do feel, right? But here, something fundamentally changed in mankind and the world. The world changed, right? It was a different time period, which we're going to learn a lot more about in the future. As we'll explain further on. Wait, should we try to get one more? One more quick one? I see Vav is short also. We'll just go by to Abyssal. Even though we'll probably repeat this next time. Adam Rishon was exactly in the state that we have described up until now, says the Ramchal. We're describing mankind before, as Adam Rishon was created. He was comprised of these two opposite aspects of him, the soul and the body. And in the world around him, there was two things. There was good and there was bad. And he was perfectly balanced between the two of them. To attach himself to that which he chose. And of course it was befitting and proper for him to choose good. And then his soul would have overpowered his body in the sense that's not the proper translation. That's where it's getting it's confusing for you. Meaning his soul would take the front seat to the body, and his spirituality on his physicality. And then, had he done that, he would have become perfected immediately, and that would have ended. And then he would have rested in his perfection forever. Meaning that would have been the end of the period of working and trying a man to perfect himself in order to achieve the infinite good, right, and reward. But since he didn't do that, things turned south, and the whole world changed, and now the situation is a little bit different than what we described up until now. But up until that point, even though we can't understand really what happened in Gan Eden and all that, but the Ramchal said is that he was perfectly placed in between that and that was the whole inyan there. Choose good, and then the story would have continued with Hashem giving the good, which is why He created the world. Right. Yeah.
How should we think about the imperfection of, because it seems that many of the good things also come about maybe that's too big of a question, but I mean, would it ever have been possible that Adam, Rishon, and Eve would just continue living in Gan Eden?
He would have lived in a different reality.
Yeah, but then we wouldn't exist.
It's all theoretical, but we would exist in him. Adam Rishon's soul Adam Rishon's soul comprised all the souls of all mankind that would ever come after him. So all of us are a spark or a piece of that one unified soul that was in Adam Rishon. So how would the experience be? I don't know. But we just like we were there, and therefore we're also today we're responsible for the sin of Adam Rishon in the sense. Why should, just because it's not just like a lineal thing of, our great grandfather made a terrible mistake and now we're all suffering for it, right? It wouldn't be right. It wouldn't be just to do that. But we're connected to that because our soul is united in the soul of Adam Rishon, and therefore it's our responsibility to clean up that sin as well. We're still suffering, and we're still responsible for it.
Level, that's what I'm asking. Like me personally, my father is Jewish, my mother is not Jewish, so I exist through basically what was a sin. And then the question becomes like, okay, but dude, like I don't know if the parallel is perfectly aligned, but like what's on a personal level, how to formulate that? What's yeah.
Try to think for a minute to see if you formulate your question.
So I have a question about the goof.
Yeah.
What do we know about our goof as we know it today versus Adam? For example, I heard, and I don't know if this is true in fact, that the only part of our bodies today that resemble Adam or our fingernails or something. Is that, yeah.
Right. So we have different midrashim about it. The Ramchal is not going to go into all of that, but more to understand like how we're supposed to relate to our bodies. But just like you heard that, that there's a source for that. That his body was a different. It looked different. It was experienced differently. They really changed. Now, like we said before, that kind of relates to what we said before. That according to Ramchal, that we're going to have a body in the future, but the body is experienced. The experience of our body is a subjective experience. What does that mean? Our body feels physical in comparison to our soul. Right? That makes sense? So the more revealed our soul, the more it's getting a little sticky, but in the next world, when our souls are so much less limited and so much more just revealed and experienced, so the body, it's still going to feel physical in regard to the soul, but in relation to the body that we have right now, it's a totally different body, right? In other words, that line, that border between physical and spiritual, it always exists. It's just all that is a marker between two different levels, right? But it's dependent on where the person is. Just like we were saying before, you take the body and the soul here. The soul is always the soul, and the body is always the body, right? But how are they being experienced, and how are they being used? Yeah. Hi, gentlemen. These are super deep and awesome things, and we're b'metach right now. We're in how do you say that? We're in suspense. We're in suspense. We don't know what's going to be next, but otherwise, you have to make sure that you guys keep coming. We